radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio. For the masses. Yeah, man. Today's Tuesday, December 28th, 2021. 361 days into the new year. Only 4 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of nowhere. A total undisclosed location. But it is beautiful. Yes, it is indeedy. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for the Game Changer Network and the UnX Networks. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing tonight? Continuing our New Year's week on Fade to Black. Tonight we have very special guest, Peter Robbins is with us. Tomorrow night, our last guest of the year, Richard Dolan. And then Thursday night is our last show of the year. And it's also a Fader night. Couldn't be more perfect. Couldn't. All right. I'm just going to get straight to it. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do. Follow me right there. And hashtag F2B is the sandbox. You can come and hang out with all the other Fadernauts over there. We don't bite. We behave for the most part. And that's hashtag F2B. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. And that's it. Let's get straight to the breaking news right before the show tonight. A couple of announcements happened, and the first is Harry Reid, longtime senator from Nevada and former Democratic leader, has died at the age of 82. He rose from humble beginnings in Searchlight, Nevada, to become one of the most powerful politicians in Nevada history, capping off his political career as the Democratic leader in the Senate, including 8 years in the majority. And he will always be remembered by our community as one of the people behind the creation of ATIP and the pursuit of UFO disclosure. Harry Reid died today at the age of 82. The announcement came from his wife. Also, right before the show, I did speak with Lou Elizondo about Senator Reid, and the news obviously was just breaking, and Lou just said he was a trailblazer, and said some other nice things about Senator Reid, who was his friend. And I'm going to leave that right there, and maybe on Thursday night after we get through some of this, we'll have Lou on the show briefly to speak about Senator Reid. Okay, and also today, legendary football coach and broadcaster John Madden passed away unexpectedly this morning at the age of 85. Wow. Okay. So, kind of weird, right before New Year's, right at the end of the year to have breaking news like this. It's cold. It's cold. Snowing in their mountains. We've got 17 feet of snow in the Sierras here in California. 17 feet of snow in the middle of a drought. No rain. Rivers shrinking up, and then now it's almost like too much. It's been raining here. Rained again today. It's rained here. I think I'm going to go 5 days. 5 days in a row. And 3 of those days were just gnarly rain. Okay. More breaking news. Amazon says it has fixed an error that led Alexa to suggest a child perform a dangerous TikTok challenge. That's right. In a viral post this past Sunday, Twitter user Kristen Livdahl said the Alexa on her Echo device told her 10-year-old daughter to do a dangerous task when the girl asked the smart speaker for a challenge. Livdahl included Alexa's response when asked, "Tell me a challenge to do." Quote, this is Alexa. Quote, "Here's something I found on the web," Alexa replied. According to ourcommunitynow.com, the challenge is simple. Plug in a phone charger about halfway into a wall outlet, then touch a penny to the exposed prongs. End quote. The so-called penny challenge made the rounds on TikTok last year. How crazy is that? They'll also announce today the mummy of ancient Egyptian pharaoh Amenhotep I was so exquisitely wrapped, decorated with flower garlands, and buried with a lifelike face mask, scientists have been hesitant to open up the remains. That is, until now. Some 3,000 years after Amenhotep's burial, a team of researchers used CT scans to digitally unwrap his body for the first time, virtually peering through the many layers to reveal what he would have looked like when alive. They also found that the pharaoh was 35 years old and 5.5 feet tall when he died. He was also circumcised and had good teeth. Beneath the wrappings were 30 amulets as well as a unique golden girdle with gold beads. Very interesting. Yeah. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today, Denzel. Denzel Washington. Today is 67 years old. And now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, why would Denzel be on your list, Jimmy? I'm going to tell you why. First off, training day, right? But second, American gangsta. Man. So that's why Denzel's on this list. Also today, Don Francisco is 81. Sábado Gigante. That's right. Don Francisco. Edgar Winter today is 75. Man, where do you go? Do you go Frankenstein or Free Ride? Right? That's a tough one. I think Rick Derringer played on Frankenstein, by the way. That's his guitar on that. Yeah. Our dead guy's birthday today is Alex Chilton, legend. 1950 to 2010, died at the age of 59. Alex was the lead singer for the Box Tops. He was just 16 years old when he first did his first professional recording, and it was his biggest, the Box Tops song, The Letter. It became a #1 international, worldwide universal hit. The box tops recorded with the famous Chips Moman and Dan Penn at American Sound Studio and Muscle Shoals Fame Studios. In 1998, his song In the Street was chosen as the theme song for That 70s Show. And that version of the song was sung by Todd Griffin. And then a new version was later recorded by Cheap Trick, and that was used for the rest of the seasons. There you go. Alex was taken to the hospital in New Orleans on Wednesday, March 17th, 2010, complaining. He died the same day of a heart attack. Alex Chilton. Incredible. What a great song, The Letter. On this day in history, OTD, 1895. The world's first commercial movie screening takes place at the Grand Café in Paris, and the film was made by Louis and Auguste Lumiere. Yeah, on this day in 1895. And, their patent for a movie projector. Edison had his thing going with film, but it wasn't a projector. See, and so Louis and Augusta, they had a photography film processing company in Paris, but they figured out how to get the film into a projector onto a wall and onto a screen. And there you go. They said, man, his is cool, but we're about to dust it. And that's what they did right there in Lyon, France. Fader fact. All right. I want you to write this down. This is a good one. Pope Gregory the 18th. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Pope Gregory the 18th is an anti-pope of the Palmarian Catholic Church. He left the faith, married a nun, stole a BMW, and then they attempted an armed robbery of his former cathedral, beat up a bunch of bishops with a ball-peen hammer, and he's now in prison, along with his ex-nun wife, Nieves. Look it up. It all just happened, man. This was like 2019. Yeah, it was crazy. Pope Gregory the 18th. All right. I didn't even know they had popes in the Palmarian Church, but they do. They do. Tonight, continuing our New Year's week here on Fade to Black, we have very special guest Peter Robbins with us. Tomorrow night, our last guest of 2021 will be here, and that may be Richard Dolan. Thursday is our last show of the year, and it's on a Fader night. And that's going to be great, taking calls with all of you. But right now, I need to hit this River Moon coffee, rivermoonwellness.com. Promo code F2B Blend. Get you 15% off of your order today, rivermoonwellness.com. I like my coffee, Doc. Today, I mean, I was going to hold off on things. I don't want to say morose, but sometimes that word comes to mind. But I remember 5 years ago, maybe 6. I spoke about our heroes, and I did it for a few different reasons, and then right after that, I mean, we lost David Bowie, and man, I mean, it was like Glenn Fry, just crazy stuff, Tom Petty. And it just seems sudden and seems strange, and of course last year Eddie Van Halen leaving this earth for another place, and you just kind of got to stop and think sometimes about your own mortality, and today, so John Madden passed away today, Harry Reid passed away, but 82 and 85 years old. Okay, all right. But hidden away over this last 3 or 4 days, there's some other obituaries there. I'm not going to go through the names, but what I would say is, at a young age, 57, 59, 58. I'm 58. And I start to look at this, and I feel a little bit strange. And there's a reason for this. Now, we were chatting last night with Adam Apollo and talking about social media and how it has literally taken over our lives. And thankfully, I monitor, I guess, a little bit of social media. I don't spend hours of each day. I'm not glued to my phone. You don't see me making a ton of posts because I don't. I just don't do it. And then I have other company posts that are handled by somebody else. I don't even do that. So I don't let social media affect me. But that's not my point. We were talking about this last night about how social media is just taken over the world, and there's no question about the power and the influence of YouTube and of course Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and anything else out there that people are using. But the big ones, yeah, certainly Facebook is what comes to mind because of the way it's set up and the attention that's put on it and how many people on this planet are focused on it. But why is that important when I'm talking about Harry Reid and John Madden and those that have died and of course, David Bowie and Eddie Van Halen? All right. I spoke about this 5 or 6 years ago, and I can't remember at the time what had provoked this, but a few things popped up. And I do my famous birthday list every day, right? Like today, Denzel, on that list. And I always do a dead guy's birthday. And when I had originally spoke about what I'm about to talk about now, it was because I'm looking at the ages of, heroes, people that I've looked up to and followed, and I'm looking at their ages, thinking, how is this possible? How did we get here? And why do I even care? Why is it affecting me? Ozzy Osbourne or Paul Stanley or, Rob Halford, 72 years old. And, of course, Mick Jagger and Jimmy Page and Robert Plant and you just go through and I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do? How am I going to react? And why is it that I'm so emotionally wrapped up in this? It's different today. And when we were growing up, and I'm 58. All right. So when we were growing up, 15, 16, 17 years old, 10 years old, right? And you're young. So there were magazines like Teen Beat and Tiger Beat or whatever. But printed monthly. You had to go to the store and buy it, or you had to have a subscription. There wasn't anything instantaneous. There was no MTV. There wasn't even cable television. And stuff didn't exist. So, and for me, and this is what makes it even stranger, for me, I was a hard rock, heavy metal guy, and I was into the stuff that wasn't in print. You had to search for it. So if I went to go get a Hit Parader magazine or a Cream magazine, there was no Black Sabbath in there. Maybe once a year there'd be a little blurb about something, but no, there, and so to find out anything about the bands I was into, Deep Purple, there was no Santana in Hit Parader, Ted Nugent, these things that I was into. And so the pursuit of that was tough. And so the emotional side of it, yeah, you had the records and you had the thing, but you didn't have this crazy in-depth knowledge of people's lives. It didn't exist. And not until MTV in 1982, 1981, 82, whenever MTV went on the air, which was live, and it was the rock and roll update news. They had the music news, MTV Music News, and now all of the sudden, our video killed the radio star, and everything was in your face. And as this started, now we had this like direct connection, and you could see an interview with Ozzy, or the US Festival, and backstage live Van Halen, Quiet Riot, whatever, Judas Priest, and there's another one, right? Judas Priest. And so, but even that wasn't where we are today. And having that immediate thing that went on through the 80s, which was MTV, things were now live in your homes, and videos were being released, and this didn't exist before. And you start to develop, because I went through this, and we all have now gone through this, you develop this emotional connection, right? Now, I don't know Eddie Van Halen. I met him years later, but when I'm a kid, right? Or Rob Halford or Tony Iommi or these things, that all happened later. But when I was growing up, it was different. And now these generations are getting up there in years. And those that I struggled and pushed with to find out all the information about them and get involved and be a fan and all of that, it puts me in a weird position, as it does with anybody, that when these people leave this planet, we're going to be deeply affected. And it wasn't like this for people in the 1920s, 1930s, 1700s. What did you know about somebody? You didn't know anything. Today, we know absolutely everything. It's every kind of reality show you can imagine, and social media, and these celebrities and these musicians and these things, posting and Instagramming, and we are inside of their lives. We don't know them, but we think that we do. It's a weird thing. It's so strange to me, and I know the reactions personally from members of my family, specifically my daughter Nicole. When David Bowie passed, she watched Labyrinth since she was born. And she would, as soon as she was old enough to operate a VCR, I'm talking about 2 years old, I put her in her bedroom. She had a VCR and a TV in there, and she had copies, videotapes of Titanic. She had the original Dune. She had what were the Warner Brothers and the Sister Dot, whatever they, and Labyrinth. And so she'd be in there, and I would hear her turn her TV on. All right, and I would hear Labyrinth. And she grew up the biggest David Bowie fan and knew everything about it. But now she's got the internet. She's got everything. She's in a different DNA mindset than the way that we grew up. So when David Bowie passed, she was wrecked, as was so many millions and millions of people on this planet. Took it emotionally so hard. And I went through this week, and I didn't want to bring up these different people that left us this week because I don't want it to affect people. I don't want it to affect me. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing my best to just stay off of social media. You know, it's one thing. So let's stay connected. This is who's on the show this week. But everything else, I just try to steer clear. It's just strange. And I was going to speak about all of this on Fader Night. And then Harry Reid left this planet. And before ATIP, really, honestly, Senate Majority Leader, okay, I didn't know who he was. Kind of knew the name, right? But because of ATIP and this community and all of the coverage and the interviews and the things and the media and the focus on Harry Reid, our community got to know him. And I think we will always remember Harry Reid. We're not going to think about him as being Senate Majority Leader. That was then. We don't even know anything about that. We will remember him because of his pursuit of the UFO question. And that is because of social media. Otherwise, Harry Reid's a senator that did 30 years of political life, and he left this earth today at the age of 82. Good for him. Long life. Served his country. Great. Fantastic. But that's it. But now there's this emotional connection because of social media and this community being exposed to that and what he did for us in the community about UFOs. And that's why I'm speaking about this tonight. I was going to do it on Thursday, but wow. There you go. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Social media, man, it's messing with our heads. It's messing with our heads. I wish there was a way that we could manage social media. You get 1 hour a day. That's it. 1 hour a day. Spend it wisely. I'll be right back. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Peter Robbins. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
The This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
The new KUNXDB, the UNX Network, bringing you the best in paranormal programming in premium high-definition streaming audio and video. Log on to the network at unxnetwork.com and check out the growing lineup of programs, including Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and many more. Sign up for the free UNX newsletter, follow the UNX blog, or pick up the latest edition of the UNX magazine. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So check us out at unxnetwork.com. Tap the show page and the calendar so you never miss your favorite live shows and podcasts. We are your portal for all things paranormal. The X, explaining the unexplained.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Continuing our New Year's week here on Fade to Black. Tonight, very special guest, Peter Robbins, is with us. Tomorrow night, our last guest of 2021, Richard Bleepin Dolan. Thursday night is our last show of the year, though. And it's also a Fader night. Open lines all night long. It's going to be a great night. And I'll see everybody on Thursday. I'll see everybody tomorrow night. I'll see you now. Tonight, we're going to talk with Peter about a lot of things. We've got the breaking news about Senator Harry Reid. We will get to all of that. And, Peter's a member of the media on all fronts. And I want to talk about UAPs and UFOs this year in the media and what we can expect in 2022. He's an investigative writer. He's an author. He's a lecturer. He's also a show host. His writing and research are focused on the subject of truly anonymous anomalous UFOs and their implications for humanity. He has appeared as a guest and has been a consultant to numerous radio shows, television programs, and documentaries. TV appearances include Ancient Aliens, the History Channel's Britain's Roswell, Unsolved Mysteries, Good Day New York, The O'Reilly Factor. We need to take that off, Peter. We're going to pull that out. We're going to pull that out of the bio. The Real Roswell, Nat Geo, and the Sci-Fi Channel documentary UFO Invasion at Rendlesham. I would like to welcome back the one and only Peter Robbins. Peter, good evening, man. How you doing?
Good to hear your voice, Jimmy.
The O'Reilly Factor. Is he still around? Is he still around?
No, he isn't. And that was in 2002.
2002. Here, I'll take it out. I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to go like this and backspace, and I'll send you a copy of the edited version for later use. And, okay, all giggles aside, Harry Reid passed away today. Yeah. And now I would like to talk about Senator Reid here for just a bit, if we may. But one of the things that I commented on, I don't know if you listened to it at the beginning of the show, which is if it wasn't for the internet, and social media, would we have gotten, as our community has, gotten attached to Harry Reid and emotionally attached to him because of ATIP and his pursuit of the UFO question? It's weird to me how we are now inside of everybody's lives. And it doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or if you're just, a pool cleaner, in the valley. You're on social media posting pictures of your family, your dogs, your food, what's going on, everything. You're exposing your life to the world.
Yes.
Right? And suddenly the shelter that we had pre-social media is now gone, and we are emotionally involved with people that we have never met. Right? It's
true.
Yeah. Isn't that a strange feeling?
Well, not only that, but up until the moment that social media really took off and ran with all of our lives, most of us were more interested in having our privacy observed to at least a controllable degree. And now it's, I just want to be out there. I want to be well known. I want to be famous like you are a famous person. So I've got my own thing going here. You can listen to my podcast. You can see my pictures. And somebody please send me some money because I want to be making money for being famous, or at least having a presence out there in the world, because I'm one more lonely person stuck in my house in this crazy period of time.
Now, what is it? Is it so much of? It's almost like sepia tone. The memory of pre-internet, right? It's like sepia tone. It's like an old-timey OK Corral photograph. And it was just 25 years ago. And how quickly we went from privacy was your goal, right?
Yes.
Don't get in my business. Privacy is your goal. Now it's how many pictures can you post of your pets, your kids, your food, what's going on inside of your house, right? And it's the exact opposite.
Jimmy, I'm as you're talking, I'm thinking it's all, the ultimate emblem of it is your handheld communication device, which of course you cannot live without, but up until you had one was the ultimate cool science fiction luxury. I remember doing a book tour in 1997 in the UK and going into a bar with a bunch of colleagues, and I had one that my publisher had loaned me, and everybody put their phone on the table, and it was kind of a statusy thing. And my feeling originally was, who needs this? This is absolutely the biggest silly luxury imaginable. Regular phones are fine. I can write letters. I can type email. But overnight, it was, you couldn't live without it. And that cuts both ways. I think it's both ominous and wonderfully helpful. You see people who are evolving the speed of their thumbs, and at the same time, their inability to look at another person and have what we used to call a conversation. I don't know if you remember them.
I don't.
But yeah, instead of one person talking and the other person waiting to have a chance to talk back because they're not listening, they just want to say what they're going to say, it's changing everything. And at the same time, at a moment like this, where a well-known, well-respected figure on both sides of the aisle to a good degree passes, so we all know Senator Reid was fighting cancer for years, who was known as a tough, no-nonsense guy, a conservative progressive, if you will, who was known for being a prize fighter when he was younger. And we have a moment to reflect on his bringing us a bit further along and how he helped to change things in the arena of serious UFO UAP studies And I, for one, will miss him. He was a good man and an honest politician, which, as we discussed earlier, is almost an oxymoron in our world, sadly.
Yeah, and from Nevada, which takes takes it. I love Nevada, but we all know what I'm talking about. Nevada is one of my favorite states.
Yes,
but we all know what I'm talking about. You go to Nevada to do things that to get your yayas out that you can't do in your hometown, and that's what we love about Nevada. So, but here's the thing. Up until the article in the New York Times, up until December 17th, I didn't know who Harry Reid was.
Oh, my.
And well, I knew the name. Senate Majority Leader, but I'm not a big political guy.
Okay.
And just because I know, but that's it, right? Now I feel that I know him because of the last 3 or 4 years, and I've been able to get into his life. I've watched all of his interviews. You know, George Knapp or James Fox phenomenon, and you're and you are able to see and understand somebody at another level. That he was in politics for 30 years, and I couldn't tell you any legislation he passed, or or that goes with anybody on Capitol Hill. It's not just Senator Reid, but now our community has lost somebody that they have been emotionally involved with, and somebody that has really moved the bar forward, really moved the ball down the field.
He has. And for those folks who kind of became aware of him in 2017 with this now seminally well-published New York Times article by our friend Ralph Blumenthal and the great Leslie Kean and Kathleen, can never remember the third reporter that broke that story in the Times. Going back 10 years before that, Reid was joined by his colleagues, the senators from Alaska and Hawaii, Ted Stevens and Daniel Inouye, trying to convince Congress to invest $22 million, a lot of money for most of us regular folks, but a drop in the bucket for Congress, in what was a clandestine operation for a program called, as you know, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And it was simply a plea for a standing committee, a standing unit, to learn more about this phenomena, truly anomalous UFOs. The original committee is now mutated into the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. But again, that was 10 years before that article broke. And it was all very hush-hush at the time, although on a certain level, extremely low-key. What they were asking for was what certain people within the United Nations establishment were asking for in 1978, a committee to learn more about and study this phenomena, which passed in committee and then was allowed to die, and that was it for the UN and UFOs. So the fact that this got traction, and he never let go. The guy was a bulldog on a certain level. And the fact that he retired, he did not leave his post on this subject and stuck with it until, bad health disallowed him to be a public person not that long ago. But it's nice to also have somebody in public life you can look up to and say this was, again, a decent man, a decent politician who, as a private pilot also, had a fascination beyond the guy on the street with these anomalous phenomena that pilots, if they reported them for decades, could jeopardize their licenses and lose their livelihoods by saying, I saw this and I took it seriously.
The chances that you have to take as a politician for something like, the study of UFOs. And there's other things out there that are just as challenging to go and do. But to gather support, to get this, and then fund it. Now, I think all of us are still really unclear exactly how everything went down. Where did the money actually go? How it was spent? How was all of that divvied up? We'll never know. It's Black Project money, and that's it. But to take those chances, it makes me ask a couple of questions. What was it in Senator Reid's life that caused him to open his eyes? And I don't think it's reports on TV. I don't think it's ancient aliens. I don't think I don't think it's any of those things. There was another motivating factor there. I wonder if he saw something that he never talked about publicly, but something raised his fascination so much so that he forced this to happen.
Yes. This is where we get into the realm of what I would call educated speculation. It could have been any of the things that you said. Let's remember that at a certain point in his life, he was not just, the elected representative for one of the representatives for the state of Nevada. He was a player. He was Speaker of the House. And as such, he had a certain amount of gravitas. And there are always people, I'm one of them, who want to get to people like that and impress upon the importance of their issue. It would not surprise me if more than one person had brought to his attention with some viable evidence that this was a real phenomena. Or, again, as a private pilot in a state with a lot of sky, he could have seen something, or a colleague of his, a fellow pilot or a fellow friend. In 1967, the state of Michigan had a huge series of UFO sightings. At the time, Gerald Ford was the leading representative. And a number of these witnesses were not just regular Michiganers. They were friends of Ford's, people he grew up with, some of them police officers, other ones in responsible positions, or just, again, regular folks that he knew. And he became so interested in the issue that he pushed through a resolution in Congress to investigate the phenomena. And they did for 48 hours, and that was it, and it died. But he did it. He had the courage to put his reputation on the line at a time when taking UFOs seriously publicly, for a public figure, whether it's a scientist, a politician, again, somebody in public life, could have cost, again, his career or at least an awful lot of ridicule, and nobody likes to be made fun of. So I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to that one, Jimmy, but it's certainly possible that he was an insider. There are people that could have brought this to his attention in no uncertain terms and may well have.
Well, certainly a Senate Majority Leader, you've got a pretty lofty level of security clearances and exposed to not only national but international situations that are dealt with daily by Washington. And maybe he was exposed to something at that level too, but then he's got Area 51 in his state. Right. So yeah, there must have been something there. Another. Do I want to say mitigating factor? Some kind of a progenitor. Some original thing that lit a fire under him to take this to another level that most people would even dare touch. And here's the other thing I did want to mention though. 82. Yes, he passed away today. He passed away the day after Biden signed the NDAA, right? Which is the funding for the security, the intelligence budget for 2022. That had all of the provisions in it, correct, for the new UAP version of the task force. I forget what they've called it now. Is it Astro? It's got
God, I forget the
some new moniker. Yeah.
But end of life issues, how far along he was in not being conscious, to be blunt, or whether he was, aware and alert up until, 12 hours or so before he started to really transition. If he knew about it, if he heard about it, maybe that was the point where he decided he could let go.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I think we need to acknowledge this about Senator Reid, it has to do with character. And this has nothing to do with UFO phenomena. It has to do with character. This was not a guy who had things handed to him. In fact, if you take any time to learn about his early life, it was Dickensian. His father was a miner. He was an alcoholic. He took his own life at 58 years old. His mother took in wash. He grew up in a home without plumbing or heating. He had to go 30 miles to Henderson, Nevada to go to high school, 30 miles each way every day. He was a prize fighter as a young man, and he kept it up into the last years of his life. He was a tough son of a gun, and he was a self-made man. Again, who's ever self-made? We all owe something to different individuals who were there for us at different times. But he didn't have things handed to him. And when an issue like this ultimately fell into his lap or became a subject of serious interest to him, he was not the kind of person that was going to back down because people might make fun of him. So I have a lot of respect for him. Again, a long life, one where he was a true public servant, agree or disagree with his politics. Again, a decent man in a hardscrabble business, who in this case, we really owe something serious to. His efforts have helped us to get this far along in the public acknowledgement that we are not alone, and we damn well better acknowledge it.
Who do you think is? I mean, he left the Senate a while ago, but who is there? Somebody? Is it Gillibrand? Is there somebody that is ready to take the baton and continue running around the track?
There may well be. The old expression, politics makes strange bedfellows. Well, so does UFO studies. And one of the things for me, yes, I am a member of the media in that I host a weekly radio show, which I'm very proud of. But up until a year ago, I was an outsider as much as anybody, without a voice in a regular broadcast basis. I came at it from many different angles over the decades. And it's been so interesting the past few years to see how, as the ridicule factor has dissipated, it doesn't matter which side of the political agenda you are on. We have, perfect example is the senator from Florida.
Rubio.
I'm blanking. Yeah, Marco Rubio, who is taking this very seriously in a very public way. And then not that long ago, my senator, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, comes forward with this incredibly intelligent, brilliantly worded, highly informed, like 140-page proposal. And one cannot help but think that she didn't do it all on her own. I have no idea of the backstory here, but she was aided in understanding the situation, in wording this proposal brilliantly. And they're both equally committed to seemingly getting to the bottom of this subject, and their politics couldn't be more different. I think that's a very healthy sign. We also probably have a number of major political figures on both sides of the aisle just waiting to step forward to get some of this limelight, and because they genuinely have a curiosity or concern about the same subject, but either one of them has a shot at emerging. at a main or the two main speakers on this subject to get our Congress in gear on this subject. And, torpedoes be damned.
Yeah, I don't do politics on the show, but I definitely do the politics of UFOs.
Yes.
And these midterms are coming up, too, as well. And do you think that this could be a campaign issue, a bullet point?
I think it could. And I think that the wild card here is what, if anything, is going to happen between now and campaign time to energize the subject, to bring serious interest to yet a wider demographic of the American public, or whether it's just going to continue to organically grow. I'm not very good at predicting, but I think that it could be. It could be. Again, to cite my very favorite quote by former President Trump, we'll see what happens.
Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, continuing our New Year's week here on Fade to Black, Peter Robbins. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer and UnX Networks. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, VX.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer, Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black Blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
Welcome back. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Peter Robbins is with us on the Game Changer and UnX Networks. Brace Hobbs. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and now, Peter, over the years, you and I have had so many conversations about things and you know, UFO related and ET and stuff. You've published books as an author. You have been a researcher. You've been a speaker. You've been on many television shows. Very experienced in the world of media. Now, of course, a talk show host. But looking back through your career, where you are constantly fighting for recognition of the subject and trying to constantly get a conversation started, and you know, to get the word out on this stuff, that and for decades, and that couldn't have been easy. And then you look at, you know, the last 3 years, and then, you know, of course, 2021. Are you surprised at the media coverage now, where it seems to be fairly easy to get this out into the public?
I have to say I am. I'm generally an optimist, but again, over the years, you just get so used to pounding away with minimal impact. And like most folks interested in the subject, I read the article, the Game Changer article in the Sunday edition of late December 2017, which was accompanied by another article, which was a brief interview with one or two of the pilots involved in the initial Navy Tic Tac sighting. I thought it was very noteworthy that the article appeared even starting as a box, a small box on the first page. It could still claim to be a page one article. Certainly it was well written. I knew two of the reporters involved, nothing but respect for both of them. And I just kind of chalked it off, in part because years ago, Jimmy, out of a personal obsession, I decided to read every single article the New York Times had ever published since 1947 on the subject of flying saucers, unidentified aerial phenomena, unidentified aerial discs, UFOs, etc. I began to work in the analog late 80s at the New York Times newspaper morgue, going to the microfiche editor with the code numbers, getting the microfiche, printing out the article, continued it over the years in digital times. And I can't give you a hard stat on it, but I'd say of the 230 or so articles, editorials, letters to the editor, photo captions, etc. that I read, about 97% of them were condescending, sarcastic, dismissive in character. So one more article in the Times, even a good one, which was rare, did not make me think it was going to change things. And I was one of those people in the field who it took me about a year to realize that it had signaled a change. I kept waiting for that other shoe to fall. But other major media fell in line behind the Times. And then, again, it didn't matter whether it was Fox or CNBC, conservative, progressive, it didn't matter. And there was a change in the air. And it's been very gratifying to see.
And it really hasn't let up.
No.
There's been very few lulls, and it continued throughout 2021. And is that surprising that it doesn't seem like whoever flipped the switch, right, from yes to no and no to yes, right? Whoever flips that switch has not flipped it back down. All right, it's still okay.
Question.
Yeah,
I don't think at this point being the last few years, that switch in the old-fashioned sense is flippable anymore. The old stock conundrums that they used to trot out, going back to war jitters and mass hallucinations and swamp gas and every misinterpretation of a natural phenomena, a weird weather pattern, lights on clouds. My favorite going back to the 40s was Brownian movement on the eyeball. Yes, sir. People are not buying it anymore. And this is a place where social media and the internet are serving the truth. You have too many people who are too interested and keeping up on the subject. And, even if they're going to sources that I wouldn't recommend them, they're learning more about the history of the UFO phenomena, the history of the cover-up. So the forces that be, those folks whose names we often don't know, who move the chess pieces behind the scenes of history, the best they can do is slow the process down, upfuse it, create dissonance, put us on each other's cases. Nothing like infighting for enjoyment of the masses. Again, they can't stop it anymore. I think that is a wonderfully healthy change. And Reid observed coming up to the summer, this past summer, that Congress should not make. The Congress should make this an ongoing program, and that the so-called report of June was not going to have much to say, and that we should not have one shot at this, that it needed to be a process that was being initiated. And the process now has been initiated. Again, I think if the forces that be that would like to keep the lid on this, and I think there's always been infighting, Jimmy, in this area within the intelligence and military intelligence community, if they had their way, we would get several reports a year for decades, each one carefully stage managed to seem to put forward, gosh, we've learned something else new here, and isn't this intriguing, when they know everything that's going on and have to a great degree for 3/4 of a century. So there's a certain amount of game playing that's going on right now, and people who are fighting to stop the play and accelerate the process by which truth is disseminated.
One of the, if we look back at 2021, so much happened in 2021 when it comes to UFOs and UAPs that I think we need to be reminded, because all of the other news that is constantly going on, I'm not going to get into all of the details with this, but news gets clouded, and so much information is coming at us every single day that it's hard to remember the breaking news from yesterday, let alone last week. And if we go back and bring up June 25th, with the UAP Task Force report and how that was covered in the media, that was only part of the story. And that UAPTF report probably would have never happened if it wasn't for Senator Harry Reid and ATIP. And let's be very clear on that.
Yes.
But when we talk about ATIP, prior to the report was the news that came out about Lou Elizondo bringing on Danny Sheehan to go straight at the Department of Defense because of some comments. It's a question of somebody is lying and somebody's telling the truth here. We just don't know which side of the fence everything is falling on. But Danny Sheehan had to get involved, and so he goes in with the ODNI and says, wait a minute, they've erased his emails. They said that he didn't have anything to do with ATIP. They said that, and the Department of Defense and their spokespeople are going out and saying these things. This would have never happened ever before with the UFO question in the past. Now this is news. And then this is the other part, and I want your comments on this. Then you had one of the directors of the intelligence community over at DOD issue a directorate about reports and that they need to be created within 2 weeks and distributed. And one of the reasons for this was because ODNI said, wait a minute, this agency knows something, this agency knows something, this agency, but I know nothing. What have you been doing on the UAP issue? Who's been talking about it? What's going on? Because my office knows nothing. Yeah. Suddenly, what this community has been talking about for all of these years, compartmentalization, not sharing information, people sitting on things, crash debris, whatever it is, has been hidden from those that should be in the know. This was huge news this year. That would have never been covered before, Peter.
No, it wouldn't. And if you had told me this might be the case 4 years ago, even 3 years ago, I would have smiled and nodded and looked for the nearest exit. It just seems so unlikely. But as this establishment of secrecy and secret keeping, which went into lockdown in the summer of 1947, and has maintained itself almost with fortress-like integrity since then. Once it started to crumble, and again, we can only make certain assumptions here about why and how and when, in the winter of 2017, the cracks started to show massively. And we in civilian life, even those of us who purport to be fairly well self-educated, we still don't have a clue about certain aspects of what goes on the scenes. And I think that's important to acknowledge. For me, guesswork is an essential part of this, but informed guesswork. And that at the highest levels of intelligence keeping and need to know, there is ferocious infighting. There are people who are tired of keeping up this false front and this nonsense and this constant scree of lying that they've been doing for decades and inheriting from those who came before them and others who want to just stand the line, stay where you are, hold the position, there's too much to lose in terms of embarrassment. To digress for a moment, Jimmy, can you imagine if we still lived in a time when a president of the United States could still go on television and radio and major media and say, my fellow Americans and by extension citizens of the world, it's my solemn duty to inform you that, and then, the wording would follow. That probably had its last shot under Eisenhower. Truman could have done it. Eisenhower may have been able to do it. Kennedy couldn't. Now it would have to be coordinated with all world leaders, not to mention leaders in the fields of economics, psychology, business, religion, you name it. But if it could be done, it still wouldn't be done because presidents of the United States are temporary employees, and whether they're Democrat or Republican or whatever, they form a very elite club. And if they're gone, their families still have a say. And for a president to say an announcement, even anything like this, would immediately be to admit that they and every president since and including Harry S. Truman have been an unindicted co-conspirator in the biggest cover-up in the history of humanity. And they're a little touchy about that.
A little bit, yes.
Again, the infighting will continue, but for the first time, we're seeing the cracks, and we're seeing major figures in different agencies, and the head of NASA only last month, and then major academics finally having the courage to really come forward. Avi Loeb of Harvard is a great example, who don't give a damn anymore what Harvard's going to say, because it's fair game now. It's science, it's history, and it's I'm about to say national insecurity, but you know what? It's really a matter of national insecurity.
Now, you brought up a really good point, and that was when we look at the milestones of 2021 when it comes to UFOs and what has really been going on. It was a heck of a year. 2017 was a barn burner, definitely, at the close of 2017 and the beginning of 2018. No question about it. But you look at 2021, and it's holy crap. And one of those holy crap moments for me, again, that got buried because of all of the other news, I tried to make it news, was Bill Nelson from NASA. And yes. and Bill, in his statements, it was a political interview for the University of West Virginia with one of their it was for the political department, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a 1 hour interview. You've got 50 minutes of the politics of NASA and getting funded and how they are doing things and how Bill navigates all of that, which is a pretty nasty thing. Okay, all right. We all know about NASA and funding. But that last 10 minutes was UFO gold. And I watched that, Peter, like it was 10 minutes. I watched it 10 times. I watched 100 minutes back to back going, is he really saying? And
it was terribly exciting.
Yeah, it was. And he did not, it wasn't anything where you had to listen between the lines. He was very direct. And didn't want anybody to misconstrue or put words in his mouth. He absolutely was totally clear. Again, in any other year, this is like the biggest news, right? And in 2021, with everything else that happened, the Bill Nelson thing may be forgotten. It was a tremendous statement by Bill.
How ironic. Yes, it's true. And when you contrast that, and as you're speaking, I'm remembering back when Carter was elected, and we all knew with some excitement in the UFO research community that this next upcoming president had a serious interest, that he had actually had a sighting. In fact, it was a very public sighting in that it happened while he was campaigning, as I recall, for governor of the state of Georgia at like a Rotary Club picnic or another like organization, and went off script and said, if I'm elected, we'll get to the bottom of this. And we now know that, I think it was during the first week of his presidency, he called in the then head of NASA and said that he felt it was appropriate that the responsibility for getting to the bottom of the UFO question should very logically be transferred to NASA. And the response, and this isn't word for word, but anybody can Google it, was, "You can do what you want, Mr. President, but if you do, I will resign. We have enough trouble with funding, and it's an unpopular issue within, this agency. It's fraught with ridicule, and I do not accept that." And Carter backed down. This was just the opposite. And like you say, in a year of jaw-dropping news items around this subject, it's a footnote. I encourage everybody to do what Jimmy and I did. And, in a couple of Google hits, you could find it, Bill Nelson's statement on UFOs, and listen to it for yourself. And it's 10 minutes. That's an awful long time.
Oh, he didn't want to stop. He didn't want to stop. And, and it was really funny that how the professor, his name escapes me, but he did open the door, right? And he brings up the UAPTF, or he brings it up, and Bill was ready to go, and it wasn't a written statement. No. And one of the things that Bill Nelson said, which I thought, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was so extraordinary. He said, "We're seeing things. Something is visiting us, and it is NASA's job to find the extraterrestrial civilizations that are visiting this planet." Yeah. And I was like, wait, whoa, hold on. It is NASA's mission. And he said, "Make no mistake, we are on this. This is what we do." And I was like, oh my goodness, right? It was unbelievable.
It is. And that's one of, that statement alone gives me hope that in 2022, this will continue to snowball. And while we're talking about the breaks in the case, so to say, and the extraordinary statements and the developments and the public figures' statements, in this past year, I remember early winter of 2020, sitting down and making a list of everything that had happened in 2020, which, if it had not been run by the pandemic, although this year to a degree certainly has too, it would have been the ultimate year of breaks in the UFO story since 1947. It was breathtaking. So we are now on a 2-year roll with this, and whatever the hell is coming at us next year in the non-UFO related world, this isn't going to stop. And it's very important for broadcasters to continue to responsibly put forward every piece of news as it comes out and make sure that their audience has good sources for it if they want to check it.
Now, what do you expect when I think? Okay, I'm just going to say this directly. I think that the press people, the public's announcers of the press secretaries of the Department of Defense got called out by ODNI. And we had a pretty nice little run with Susan Goff and others that were stepping up to the podium and answering these questions about UAPs, and Lou Elizondo and ATIP and UAPs and videos. And it was, it seemed like it was a very open conversation. But that has kind of been curtailed a little bit. Do you think that switch has been flipped off, and we may not have that kind of openness with the Pentagon moving in 2022?
Great question. No, it hasn't been switched off again because they can't switch it off. However, you can imagine that there is a certain amount of high-level increasing irritation that this damn subject is getting so much time and so much serious attention when people cleared to know some of the most important secrets of state are still not cleared to know some of the mid-level information about what we euphemistically know about the truly anomalous UFO phenomena. There's got to be a certain amount of military pride frustration there, and not wanting to look uninformed. You really hit the nail on the head here. I think whoever continues to be or moves into the realm as new press secretaries in the Pentagon is going to have to walk a careful tight wire, and be careful about how they choose their words and the emphasis they put on it, unless key individuals in the leadership shift, or unless current leadership is brought more closely into the circle and sees this as something that should be put forward with more emphasis and more publicity. I remember that during the Reagan era, and President Reagan, love him or hate him, he took the subject seriously. We know he had at least one major UFO sighting, that as governor, from the plane, the governor's plane, with everybody in the crew, with a public statement after the fact by the governor's pilot. And then he and Nancy talking about it at a dinner party of a number of Hollywood major players after the fact. And his national security advisor at the time, Colin Powell, may he rest in peace, every time Reagan would start to allude to or talk about the extraterrestrial question, from what I understand, Powell would nervously make jokes about, there goes Reagan and his LGMs again. LGMs being little green men. Mm-hmm. This has to be a subject that for managers of major players is anxiety provoking, even in this more open time. And certainly that would be the case within the Pentagon.
Yeah, I went, that famous line, I use it for the intro in this show, that he did at the United Nations.
I often wonder what if.
Right. I chased this down. I got 8 audio clips from 8 different speeches where he used that line or a variation of it. And I read that his speechwriter kept removing it. And he kept handwriting it in as he's walking up to the podium. And that he did this 8 times, not once at the United Nations, but he did it 8 times. And then he had the other sighting. I got to get to a break. Him and Nancy on a Pacific Coast Highway, probably in that powder blue Mustang convertible that he so famously drove, was headed to another party in Hollywood, driving Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, and had a sighting of something that came out of the water and flew up into the sky. And they went to the party and said, "You're not going to believe what Nance and I just saw."
Exactly.
I think that was like Milton Berle's house, or Lucille Ball's, or whoever was.
I think it was Lucille Ball and Ricky Ricardo, Desi Arnaz.
Oh man, let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Peter Robbins, showing the effects of lockdown. He can't remember. Ricky Ricardo. We'll be right back. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
This is Jimmy Church, and I personally invite you to the 2022 Conscious Life Expo this February 4th through the 7th, live at the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles, California. This year, we have the most exciting speakers, including Whitley Strieber, Adam Apollo, Billy Carson, Daryl Anka and Bashar, William Henry, Caroline Corey, Susan Slaughter, Daniel Brinkley, JJ and Desiree Hertog, Sarah Breskman Cosme, George Norrie, Gail Thackeray, and many, many more. I will be hosting all weekend long, including the keynote Ancient Secrets panel on Friday night, 5 vendor and exhibit halls, 3 floors of speakers, panels, and celebration. This is the biggest event of the year, and early bird passes are available now. Just go to ConsciousLifeExpo.com for the schedule, speakers, and information. That's ConsciousLifeExpo.com. Do you want to be an official Fade or Not? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Fade or Nots. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Peter Robbins is here. Tomorrow night, closing out our New Year's week here on Fade to Black. Tomorrow night, Richard Dolan is here, also out of New York. He's a neighbor of Peter's, I understand. And then Thursday night's our last show of the year. It's a Fader night, open lines all night long. It's going to be a great way to celebrate New Year's, which is coming up on Friday, is New Year's Eve. Now, Peter, speaking of New York, Kirsten Gillibrand, and this looking forward to 2022 and looking at her original press release, this is what's crazy to me. That's December 9th. And this is fresh. And her approach to this seems to me, and I want your take on this, the opposite of the approach that is in the new intelligence budget that was signed off yesterday by President Biden. Mm-hmm. So, what's your take on it? I want to read this. This was the press release, and it says Gillibrand's provision will establish a formal office to carry out a coordinated effort on collection and analysis related to UAPs. Senator Gillibrand is announcing the inclusion of her unidentified aerial phenomena UAP amendment in the FY22 NDAA. Today, UAPs pose a significant challenge to our national security. And then she goes on to say, and I quote here, our national security efforts rely on aerial supremacy, and these phenomena present a challenge to our dominance over the air. Staying ahead of UAP sightings is critical to keeping our strategic edge and keeping our nation safe. What do you make of her? It's 140 pages. It's too long to go into here. But what do you think about her approach as opposed to the Department of Defense's approach?
I think the Department of Defense may be a little uneasy with the wording of her approach because it doesn't necessarily give them control over the dialogue. What she is saying is what the most macho alpha males have been saying for decades. This could be a threat. We don't know what it is, and therefore we have to be wary, which is the same thing the Pentagon has been saying. But again, they're not used to having a female put this forward and in such hyper articulate prose. I've read about half of her extraordinarily long and detailed amendment. And this woman has had the best counseling imaginable in nuance, in understanding, in making sure that if it's passed, this thing is going anywhere, that she will be a major player in the subject as we move forward. Again, because defense and national security is the only language that mankind on a certain level seems to understand, at least for those in power. They're certainly not going to become welcome the Space Brothers types and, let's welcome them here so that they can help us cure cancer, get on top of the pandemic, make us all love each other, and make the earth a friendly, happy, environmentally balanced place to live. She's talking their language, and in a way that I think has never been heard before from an elected American senator, which makes her kind of not a loose cannon, but a wild card.
Now, there's another part to this, which is the different branches of the military compete, right? They compete. The same thing goes on with the intelligence agencies.
Yes.
They're all competing with each other. And this has caused big problems in the past. And right now, it is glaring and out front, where it appears that both Gillibrand and Rubio are pushing for absolute and total transparency between the intelligence agencies and the Department of Defense and Capitol Hill, that everybody has to have their cards on the table. There's no more keeping this information to yourselves. And this will be like the first time that this has ever happened. And it's going to happen over the UAP issue.
Yes.
Is this possible? Can it be successful?
Well, you can almost hear the pigs squealing in the stalls right now. The fact is, since the passage of the National Security Act of 1947, and then the advent of the activation of our Department of Defense, established by our very first Secretary of Defense, James Vincent Forrestal, under a unified leader, we have played at an openness, but it's never been true. the infighting, even while the Department of Defense was being established, was murderous. And while the Army and Navy were going at it, in the wings was waiting to be activated in September of 1947, the United States Air Force. I don't think any of the service agencies or any of our intelligence agencies are happy at all about not just this push from Congress, but an equal push from the right and from the left. This has, in fact, become the only issue that I'm aware of that has united
both sides of the aisle,
extremists on the left and the right.
Yeah, well, here
they're just not used to dealing with this because it's never come up before.
No, not like this. And here's a quote from Rubio. Right, this is crazy to me. He says, quote, "It is my hope that the creation of a new Joint Defense Department and Intelligence Community Office focused on UAPs." And it says, wait a minute, it sounds like you're asking everybody to just get in the sandbox, ignore the past, and let's just play with our toys together.
You can almost hear the screams coming from the Beltway area, from Virginia, and from Maryland. They're freaking on a certain level, quietly and with a certain amount of dignity, because they don't trust each other.
Well,
this is the way the game is played.
It's the way it has been played.
Not a damn game.
No, and it has been that way for a long time on every issue. Now it's the UFO issue, but before it was every issue. Sure. And there's a highbrow attitude from each of the branches of the military and the intelligence agencies, where they know more, they are better at this than you are, right? And that's why we don't share information with you guys. And now they are being told you must, and this is going to be part of the legislation. Is there a way to fight this? And the other question, is there a way to fight this on their side? But how can we expect open transparency, right, when it's their job to hold the secrets?
We are dealing here with a deeply entrenched alpha male mentality that goes back, at least figuratively, to the revolution. That, tough guys don't give in. You don't apologize. You don't share with the other guys because it's all about winning. It's all about ego, and it's all about, being the guy that people respect the most. And I keep using the male reality because it's still overwhelmingly, dominantly, run by guys, and white guys at that, ones who have been in power since the start of this great democratic experiment. If you don't mind, Jimmy, I just want to go back for a minute to what we were talking about Reagan. And right before I temporarily lost my mind and referred to a real person as the character they played on television. While we were on break, I quickly did a quick note looking up and was reminded that a good friend of mine years ago and a close colleague, Ron McGuire, who was as intrigued as we are about the genesis of that very famous statement that was repeated but best known in the context of the 1987 statement within the United Nations. He spoke to the speechwriter, Reagan's speechwriter, who wrote that speech. And, call me a genius, but I remember the guy's name. Who knows how I remember this stuff? It was Peter Robinson. I know. It's amazing that exactly. And I just wanted, for the folks that aren't aware of what Reagan said, what Robinson told Ron was that part of the speech was not only written by Reagan, but if he could get permission to get into the Ronald Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California, as a scholar, and get to look at the actual manuscript, he would see in Ronald Reagan's very unique handwriting, along the right margin, what I'm about to read to you. And this is from, again, September 21st, 1987, Reagan's address to the United Nations General Assembly. Quote, Cannot swords be turned into plowshares? Can we and all nations not live in peace? Is our obsession with antagonisms of the moment we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity? Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were faced with an alien threat from outside this world. And listen to how he segues from that shocking statement back into the world of United Nations acceptable analogies. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war? And then he goes on with the established text from then. That's masterful. He knew, and he knew he couldn't talk about it, and yet he wanted people to know after he was gone that he knew. That's not even a coded message. That, I think, is unique among presidential statements. He was that close to saying it. He knew he couldn't, but he got it in that way.
Yeah. And like I said, I went and pulled the 8 speeches where he would, like you just said, he would have his speech. He would handwrite it out and hand it over. He had a speechwriter. They would do an edit, and then he would go and write in the margins and add that alien section that he wanted to add. It kept getting removed, and he would write it back in, and he made this statement multiple times.
Yes,
each one was varied. I ended up for this show, this is like a little historical footnote, I ended up pulling the United Nations portion of it for the intro of the show because it was the clearest. It was the clearest. It was the best recording I could get. But I got other recordings, and it wasn't as clear for production reasons, but it also wasn't as strongly worded like he did at the United Nations. But yeah, he did it 8 times. 8, not once. You know, everybody wants to cite the United Nations. No, he did it multiple times. I wonder, Peter, you're so much of a historian. The efforts that you had to go through for research, for compiling, not only for your books, but for how you approach things as a researcher in the past. How difficult was it before the internet? Where today, and the reason why I bring this up, we're talking about Gillibrand, we're talking about the NSA, the ODNI, the Senate, Capitol Hill. All of this stuff is readily available. We have C-SPAN. We can go and do whatever we want to do today.
Sure.
And the knowledge is out there, right? We have a very smart UFO community today.
Yes.
Very well informed. But how difficult was it before you had access to all of this? Like you just pulled up Ronald Reagan's speech in a commercial break. You couldn't have done that 20 years ago.
No, but I grew up in a house where there were books. And I was a little late in mastering reading because I'm dyslexic. But by the time I was 8, I had it down. I had my library card. And by the time I was a teenager, I was actively building a library. And I have a huge library here.
Yes, you do.
On history, UFO studies, science, on art, on all of the things that have come to interest me in a life that's taken me in a lot of directions and allowed me to travel in more than 25 countries, quite a number of which I cannot visit again, nor can you, and then wanting to know more about them as I move forward. Also, I read literature. For every UFO book I read a novel. There were years back when I started that I felt guilty about that. You should always be on the case. But there is something about a book that has an appendix, an index, its biography, bibliography. It shows its sources, and it has stood the test of time. And so, as an investigative writer and a lay historian, I can often find what I need right here. Otherwise, I live some miles from the college town of Ithaca, New York, and we have a great public library there. I've lived most of my life in Manhattan or in greater New York City, and the main branch of the public library there is one of, for me, the most sacred places in the world. Yes, the internet's wonderful, but I like working in the world of books. So once I started to really build that library and always have access to whatever library near where I was living, I was very comfortable doing that. And again, like when I was in high school, you used Xerox machine. Well, you used microfiche, which had articles, from papers going back 100 years, and you could print them out, copy out, type it up. So it wasn't that difficult. And I encourage everybody that has a serious interest in this subject, or if you're passionate about any given subject, to build an actual library around it, something you can take real pride in. I know, as a city dweller for most of my life, your space is limited and your bookshelf space is limited. But to whatever degree you can, build a library. And there are so many good books on the subject of UFOs and more of them coming out all of the time. You and I have so many informed colleagues who are such good writers. And it's, for me, one of the pleasures of doing the work that we do, to bring on established authors or new authors to talk about their books and hopefully help get those books out there.
Well, I think that I can't help but contemplate that one of the reasons why we are seeing the openness right now out of Washington, D.C., from every front, is that the public is informed. There's an instantaneous information system that is at the disposal of everybody and for everybody. And they now have to get out in front of this, because in the past, they could bury it, they could keep the secrets, and the public didn't know, and that was the end of the story. That comfort zone is gone. It's gone. And I think that may be part of the catalyst right now for this openness, because somebody's going to blow this out of the water for them if they don't get out in front of it.
It's true. And I don't mean in any way to demean the internet. It's miraculous. The main thing I try to stress with people that come to me to think out loud with them on their projects is get into the habit of verifying your sources wherever they are. There's so much attractive stuff on the surface, and it's sexy, and it's exotic, and nowhere more than in the world of moving images and still images regarding UFOs. But how many of them are actually backed up by photo analyses, by actual credible witnesses, by the optics that are being used, etc.? Get into the habit. It will only help you to help yourself and help others. Bring this subject together. We are all in it together, from the best known to the least known. And that is terribly exciting. You can just be somebody out there listening to this show who's developing an interest, but a year from now you can be contributing an article on some aspect of this to a journal, online or off, that will help the rest of us put that piece into the matrix and move forward that much and have it be noticed by one of our elected officials. So it's a very exciting time on this stuff. And whatever the hell happens to us next year, I think it's going to be another landmark year for advances in our knowledge about this subject and for a greater public awareness of it.
Do you think, and we talk about this every year, right before New Year's, same question. Okay, is next year the year? Is next year the year? Are we finally? Well, I'm going to ask you. I mean, is 2022? Is that the year? Have we finally arrived?
I think that's going to be a question that you'll get a much better and more detailed answer from my dear friend, neighbor, and close colleague, Richard M. Dolan. I will tell you absolutely for a fact, I haven't an idea in hell whether it's going to happen next year or not. And you can take that to the bank.
Oh, that's an easy. Las Vegas wouldn't even take that bet, Peter. I mean, this is,
that's why they pay me the big money, Jimmy.
Yeah, well, see, here's the deal. Yes, I'm right. But here's the deal. I would have thought that 2018 was the year after what happened in December of 2017. Sure. I really thought 2018 was going to be it. We roll into the end of 2019. It's too much is happening. And what I would have never suspected was that 4 or 5 years later, I'd be saying the same thing. We're kicking the can down the road. I don't want to wait to 2023. I don't.
Well, who does? But guess what? If some of they have their say, we're going to continue to wait, except that it's going to unravel more each year. Again, there are wild cards here. It could come in the form of some absolutely credible WikiLeaks type dump of information, right. Or if you're of a certain age, of a Daniel Ellsberg Pentagon paper release, or they may get tired of playing a waiting game and say, we're here, get used to it, in no uncertain terms. We live in terribly exciting times, and anything may happen at any moment to really change this story. And I'm not trying to over-dramatize it. That is where we are right now, and that is terribly exciting. But next year, maybe, maybe not. And again, I will absolutely back up that statement, my full reputation.
This is... Oh, man. I'm going to leave that right there. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Going to take a quick break. Our guest tonight, Peter Robbins, continuing our New Year's week here on Fade to Black. And again, Peter just mentioned tomorrow night, Richard Bleepin Dolan is with us. And then Thursday, our last show of the year, and it's a Fader night. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, The X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes non-fiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to getthetea.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's getthetea.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos, uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit unitedgoldgroup.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Peter Robbins is with us. And the last time Peter was on the show, I made a promise to Peter. So we're going to do this tonight. And Peter doesn't know that he is going to be staying over for overtime tonight because Peter, we're on lockdown, man. You know, what else have we got to do? We're going to talk about your sister. And I promised you the next time that we come on the show, we would discuss her very unique ET experience. So we're going to do that. But before we get there, that's why you have to stay for overtime. I want to actually discuss, because we brought up Gillibrand so many times tonight, and this is a very important piece of legislation moving into 2022, written into the fiscal year 22 budget, her legislation. And these are the 5 bullet points, and I want to discuss each one of these individually. But she states she wants collection and analysis of data into a central repository. The UAP office will supervise the development and execution of intelligence collection and analysis regarding UAPs in order to understand their technical and scientific characteristics. The UAP office will receive relevant data immediately from intelligence community agencies. What are your comments on that first point?
Breathtaking. Every single one of them is, I think, welcome, brilliantly worded, and your first question is, who is going to control that office? Because there's a lot of mucky mucks out there that would love to be the ones that exercise the ultimate say in what goes there. The fact that it is being structured to be as open and transparent and hyper-specific as possible, that you don't have a choice, guys. You're an intelligence agency. What you know, what you've learned, you will feed to us, and we will be the ones to study it, disseminate it, apply what we need to regarding it. I don't think the wording could be any better or any tighter or any more challenging to the existing structure, so to say.
Now, what about if it's written into legislation, then there must be liability and accountability. Who enforces that? And who's going to be the UFO UAP police to make sure that the intelligence community is sharing the data that they collect?
That is a question that I don't know the answer to. And obviously, this is about as important a question as is going to come up. I don't, in what I've read so far of this very long proposal, I have not seen that addressed as such. So that could be a major factor in how successful this office and this proposal is. I don't know.
The next bullet point here, establish a science plan. The UAP office will be responsible for implementing a science plan to test scientific theories related to UAP characteristics and performances. Comments?
Again, this pulls out the stops. Up until now, this has never been even, these words have never been said in the history of Project Blue Book, in the history of any official UFO proposals, reports going back really to the 1940s. This woman and her team, because, there's no question she didn't come up with this all on her own, have thought this through. And you can almost feel, for me, a sense of excitement as they lock down the wording on this, that this was going to be as airtight as it could possibly be. What you're saying here is that the international scientific community now is invited to take part in this. And this is the United States government, the elected branch of the United States government, making the invitation. Forget about ridicule. It doesn't exist anymore on this level of the game. We want your assistance. And again, one of the first people that comes up for me is Avi Loeb, who is both a respected astronomer and a respected academic with a foot in both those worlds that used to shriek as they ran away from this subject, who are now, again, he is not in the majority, but he is making the territory safe for others who will follow, and others will follow. And now the government in this proposal, Kirsten Gillibrand, and if this passes, it is to say, we need you, we want your help. It's part of the way we're going to move forward.
It's so interesting, this line, test scientific theories. Test scientific theories related to UAP characteristics and performances. Now, if there's an out clause to all of this, when I talk about sharing of information and what gets revealed, it is this. This is number 3. Build a national priorities intelligence framework. The DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, will be required to consult with the Secretary of Defense to assign a level of priority within the National Intelligence Priorities Framework related to UAPs. There's your out clause. Is that in here to satisfy the intelligence community that they don't have to drop trowel and expose?
I would interpret it that way. And in a sense, you have to do that. You have to make a concession to the egos, to the history of the cover-up, to the entrenched positions, to the feeling we can extrapolate of people who have, in their minds, been handling this for decades. And that thought that they are going to be relegated to the dustbin or not get a level of respect that they feel they've earned. It's catering to ego as well as kind of acknowledging the way things are. And I think that's brilliant too, is part of what is being built into this proposal. It's not some outrageous, idealistic, rigid structure. It's got some latitude, it's got some sway, it has some give, which when you're dealing with human beings at that level of the power game, you have to acknowledge.
You have to be a diplomat. You have to have this diplomacy inserted in this.
I think so.
Absolutely. Okay. But there's always an out clause, man. There always is. Okay, number 4. Evaluate any links between UAPs and foreign governments or non-state actors. Very important point here. The UAP office will be tasked with evaluating threats that UAPs may pose to the United States. Additionally, the office will be responsible for coordinating with federal agencies, including the FAA and NASA, and international allies and partners on UAPs.
Yes. I think this brings up a very important point, and we should take it back to the baseline here, UFOs 101. And remember, when we're talking about unidentified flying objects, unidentified aerial phenomena, historically we know, even the most enthusiastic followers of the subject acknowledge that the majority, I would say the great majority, of things that have been reported over the decades as truly anomalous UFOs or activity thereof is not. It has a conventional explanation, even if it's a exotic conventional explanation. To roughly, to cite the late great Stanton T. Friedman, and if I'm off on this quote, it's by a hair. The question is not, are UFOs advanced technology from parts unknown under intelligent control? The question is, has one ever been? But even there, we have to remember that in the category of truly anomalous UFOs, we have probably hard metal machines from parts unknown, different types of what I would categorize as Vallée phenomena, the extraordinarily important theoretical work of Dr. Jacques Vallée as seeing UFOs as any number of things, and the creation of super secret, very well-funded working groups that are all too human. I hope that you're going to ask this particular series of questions to Richard tomorrow night, because I will be fascinated to know what he has to say about these specifics that you're going over with me right now. I think it's one more way that the Gillibrand Amendment is trying to cover all the bases and acknowledge that, they don't have their head completely in the clouds, no pun intended, that this is not just, I want to believe and looking for flying saucers. This is looking at all of the possibilities, as well as bad actors, people with a tremendous amount of money and power and technology who may be on their own out there with technology that mimics the most extraordinarily off-Earth possibilities.
The last point, which is probably the biggest, as if the first 4 weren't, which is a report to Congress. The UAP office will be required to provide unclassified annual reports to Congress and classified semi-annual briefings on intelligence analysis, reported incidents, health-related effects, which you know all too much about, and the role of foreign governments and nuclear security. Strong.
Very. Again, the catch-22 in there is classified, declassified, which can mean we'll show you anything and we'll say that you are not eligible to see what we're showing this next agency, office, or group of individuals, or possibly something in between. At the same time, it's a full-scale acknowledgement to the history of UFO activity within nuclear sites and nuclear weaponry, going back to the Roswell Army Airfield in the summer of 1947, and most recently discussed at the October 19th press conference organized by the great Robert Salas at the National Press Club just 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the health-related effects is interesting, and also so every 6 months, a classified briefing report to Congress.
That's not a bad schedule. The report, in quotes, that we got in June was put forward with no understanding that there would be a follow-up. It was the report. Mm-hmm. And in fact, this gives us some structure and strategy to move forward twice a year at this point with what we, the people, will be informed about, with our elected officials will be informed about, and which are truly in the elected officials and key people in the cabinet, within the Pentagon, within the national security structure, and certainly also within the military-industrial complex and key players around the world.
Now, I'm just going to read this directly. This amendment is co-sponsored in the Senate by Senators Rubio, Republican, Florida, Graham, Republican, South Carolina, Heinrich, Democrat out of New Mexico, and Blunt, Republican out of Montana. So both sides of the aisle pushing this issue forward, which, again, for me, you can't get them to agree on school lunch funding.
Exactly.
Right.
This is remarkable. And in a way, it's emblematic of what, for me, Jimmy, has become the most centrally important issue. Like most of my colleagues, like most folks who are listening, like anybody with half an imagination and any curiosity, most of my life in this work, the dominant thoughts have been, who are they? Where do they come from? Why are they here? How many of them are there? Which ones mean us well? Which ones don't mean us well? Where do they manufacture this technology? What about the ethereal aspects? What about abductions? What about back engineering? All viable questions and ones that I think we all share. But more and more, I realize my primary value here in this work, and my primary core day-to-day interest, is the impact these questions and this subject have on you and me and our family and our friends, our fellow countrymen and women, and everybody else around the world. And that if we can finally get organized around the idea and understanding that we're not only not alone in the universe, but that there's a myriad of other intelligences coming and going, interacting with each other, probably since time immemorial, it might just help us to see ourselves as human beings first. And second, whatever our national enthusiasm or country of origin or the country that we love is, our religion, our socioeconomic background, the color of our skin, whether we're men or women, that we can unite first around the fact that we're human and that we have a lot more in common than we have separating us. And driven by climate change, by environmental shifts, that we really should all be working together, because what affects somebody on the other side of the world now actually has an impact on us. Isolationism is a charming notion, and in certain regional ways it needs to continue to be deployed. Protection of borders as well. But this subject is emblematic of how much more we have in common with each other than separates us. And it doesn't get more important than that as we move forward.
In 2022, we have a few things now, aside from the NDAA and, of course, fiscal year 22 in the budget, this legislation, the current stuff that was just signed off on yesterday by the Oval Office. 2 points. So we have this in 2022. We have Avi Loeb with the Galileo project and that moving forward. And the third point, I lost my third point. I had a dramatic strike three. and I'll come back to that. But see, the effects of the pandemic are showing up, and it was so great. It was right there. It was right there, and that's what I get for not taking notes. I don't write things down. But going into 2022. It's like everything is built in, is my point, right? That these things, we don't have guesswork in front of us or question marks. Excuse me. Things are laid out and are in front of us that have to play out.
Yeah. And if there's a positive aspect of this crazy period of time that we're living through.
I just remembered.
Triggered the memory.
You triggered the memory. Yeah, thank you for that. We have the James Webb Telescope that just launched on December 25th. That? So in 6 months, we're going to see the first images coming back from the James Webb Telescope, which is absolutely looking for one thing: life on other planets.
Yeah. How about that?
2022 is going to be nuts.
I think it's going to be a very interesting year, and maybe the seminal year in terms of UFO studies and its impact on the world at large, rather than on those people that used to be called ufologists or those who are followers of the subject. This is going mainstream more and more every single day. And that's not going to stop next year. It's only going to expand. The question is it going to continue to expand arithmetically, or is it going to start to expand geometrically? And therein lies the difference in terms of a tipping point in the world society.
You know what the tipping point would be? If Neil deGrasse Tyson flip-flops.
That'd be an indication.
That's the four horsemen trotting up the street. I mean, that's the end of times if Neil deGrasse Tyson does a flip-flop.
Seth Shostak in there and a few other people I can name. And yes, that will be the end times will truly be upon us if that's the case.
Well, see, okay. And I want to get to Helen. And so we're going to do that. But in the wording here, we have two different things happening, but one happened on both sides in the NDAA and FY22, which is Gillibrand. You say Gillibrand, I say Gillibrand. Gillibrand mentions health effects. That's a very, there are no, that I know of, the tic-tac and that type of approach to UAPs is one thing, but she is very specific about individuals that may come in contact with a UAP and a UFO and have detrimental health effects. Of course,
correct.
I think of John Burroughs immediately with this and his struggles with getting this through, and John McCain getting running interference on that to help get that pushed through. But it is also in the NDAA. They point that out too as well. So we have that coming with both forms of budget and legislation here. But there's another point that I want to get to, which is she doesn't address it here, but it's in the NDAA, which is crashed retrievals and debris.
Yes,
and that information needs to be shared. When that wording went into the NDAA, I immediately think of, and I go back to say Rendlesham or any other event where direct contact has been made, and the possibility of a retrieval and the technology that is there. And who has got it, and why don't we know about it? Well, now, apparently, it is written into the budget that any crash retrievals, right? Does that tell you that they now have heard about crash retrievals, and now they want it out in the open, that some of these agencies have been keeping this information to themselves.
Oh, yeah. And this is something that I did not anticipate that we'd be hearing about at this level this soon. For me, the desire to withhold this is so deeply ingrained into the birth of our national security state. And nobody's more of an authority on that than Richard. But what we're talking about here is that if you visualize how a pearl forms, that piece of sand that gets into the oyster, that irritates it, that the pearl starts to build up this calcification to keep from being irritated, our whole national security state and our world of increasing national security states begins in 1947, not with trying to keep nuclear secrets secret, but with covering up the crash at Roswell and similar events. And so the fact that this is now being acknowledged as a possibility, a very real possibility at this official level, for me is a breath of fresh air and so needed, because it's part of the game that's being played. Okay, maybe we're not alone in the universe, but a crashed ship from some other place, that's ludicrous. Aliens, other intelligences abducting people and, following family histories, that's absurd. Hybrids that are part us, part them, come on, that's science fiction. Missing pregnancies based on what's going on in abduction and following certain this is just nonsense, and you're insane. Implants, if they can get the foot in the door and get recovered technology, pieces of crashed craft, acknowledged as real, and then that first break where not just an independent researcher working with a curious piece of metallurgy and an analysis that may be inconclusive but's extremely interesting, and the history of that kind of aspect of UFO studies, if it just is acknowledged by the scientific community who will be working in this new office to analyze these things in a manner that's never been so seriously approached before, next year could be the game changer.
Let's take our break right here. We're doing overtime. Peter doesn't have a choice. He's staying right there. We're going to talk about his sister, Helen, when we come back after this short break. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer and UnX Network. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.
Listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church, and I personally invite you to the 2022 Conscious Life Expo this February 4th through the 7th, live at the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles, California. This year, we have the most exciting speakers, including Linda Moulton Howe, Jacques Vallée, Whitley Strieber, Adam Apollo, Billy Carson, Daryl Anka and Bashar, William Henry, Caroline Corey, Susan Slaughter, Daniel Brinkley, Sarah Breskman Cosme, George George Norrie, Gail Thackeray, and many, many more. I will be hosting all weekend long, including the keynote Ancient Secrets panel on Friday night, 5 vendor and exhibit halls, 3 floors of speakers, panels, and celebration. This is the biggest event of the year, and early bird passes are available now. Just go to ConsciousLifeExpo.com for the schedule, speakers, and information. That's ConsciousLifeExpo.com. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? Unx Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNXDB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
This is Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JamieChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Peter Robbins. The last time Peter was on with us, we talked a little bit about his sister Helen, and I told Peter that I said the next time you're on, we're going to do a segment on her, and we're going to do that tonight. And Peter, I don't know if I found this last year. There's an incredible video of Helen at the Ritz in 1984. Have you seen that video?
Oh, many times. She mostly performed original material. This is a cover of a classic rock and roll song that we both thought, when it came out in the 60s, was hysterically funny. It's the most obnoxious plea for love imaginable. I can mash potatoes. I can do the twist. Tell me, baby, do you like it like this? Tell me.
Yes.
It's joyously obnoxious, and she did a kick-ass cover of it, not with her band, but with the downtown horns and backup singers. I forget what the night was about that night. She performed all the clubs in New York and the greater New York area, but this was a grand night, and it was an awful lot of fun. We were all there, and she knocked it out of the park, as you know. Why don't you hit us with it?
I don't know if I'll get hit with a strike. Let's see. Hold on. Let me pull this up.
Please.
She's amazing, man. She's absolutely amazing. And okay, now tell me the truth. I just have to know. Did she ever punch you? Did you ever take a punch from your sister?
No. We used to play and act out for public a lot because we absolutely adored each other. We were best friends. We were roommates for about 9 years through 2 apartments and one house. We edited each other's stuff, slept with each other's friends, watched bad movies all night on weed, and loved each other and had each other's backs always.
But she never. Okay.
Oh no,
you never. She never just went fop up.
No,
I wouldn't.
But she had the pose, and again, her stage name Helen Wheels, which was given to her by handsome Dick Manitoba, lead singer of the Dictators in 1976, and it was always a Helen Wheels band after that. Her pose was very intimidating for somebody who was 4'11". But as she developed as a performer, and her acts were jaw-dropping, she would jump out into the audience years before there was a mosh pit and suffered quite a number of stage-related injuries, especially in shows at CBGB's. And so she began not just to take better care of herself and not just to work out, but she became a nationally ranked female bodybuilder.
Yeah, she was just in shape. You know,
holy moly, was she ever?
Yeah, was she ever? And she must have had a right hook though. She had to have. She had to have. Okay, so tell us about her experience. What happened?
I will, but first I'm going to say that Richard Dolan, again, who will be your guest tomorrow, is not just a.
Oh, you dropped.
Every couple of months.
Okay, I need you to. You froze up. Okay, so you said Richard Dolan is not just, and then pick up from there.
Right. Not just a good friend, but a very close colleague. And Helen died about a year or so before we became friends about 20 years ago. And he was fascinated by her abduction experience and kept putting it off. There were always other things to do. But he said, I really want to do an in-depth interview with you on that. And so in February, something we do several times a year, which is he comes over, moves in for a couple of days, we eat, drink, argue, discuss, watch movies, and have a grand time. He did an extended multiple-hour interview with me on Helen and then edited it down. And then I turned him loose in the family photo archive and in Helen's musical archive, and he illustrated it well, as only Richard can do. And if you go to the Richard Dolan channel, the Richard Dolan Show on YouTube, and you type in, I forget exactly what it is, but it's Helen Wheels UFO abduction or something like that, you'll get it in a couple of hits. I think almost 60,000 people have watched it already. And it's much, I would rather have spent this couple of minutes directing people toward that, and you can even ask Richard about it tomorrow, because he still feels it's one of the most important and earliest documented abduction cases, coming possibly several months before the Betty and Barney Hill case. We were quite young at the time. And we had a sighting, and she was taken. And my memory of it was so shattered, it overwhelmed me to such a degree that I repressed it. And that memory, with the exception of one momentary afternoon in my life, stayed repressed for over 14 years. Although I do joke with people sometimes to say if I have other repressed memories from childhood, I don't remember them. But when it came back, Jimmy, it came back with a vengeance. And it derailed my career, ultimately. That was the only thing that was really important to me at that time, and had been for many years since I was a kid, which was to be a painter, a New York City-based, very successful artist. And I became obsessed with this subject, not overnight, but in the course of moments, when she started to tell me about memories that she had never forgotten, simply hadn't shared, but what we would now call archetypical abduction-related moments of being taken, of being walked through a curved metal hallway by beings that we now call Greys, but that had not that name still to come for years, of a tall one who she felt was the one communicating with her in her head, the table that she was examined on, things that she heard in her head as a 12-year-old, and that now are so stock, that are so basic to hundreds, if not thousands, of fully reported and looked at and researched abduction experiences, that again, when she told me this, I didn't know there was such a thing as ufology. I didn't know there were UFO conferences.
Now, what
I didn't
year,
know anybody who was interested, and it changed both of our lives.
Yeah, what year did this occur?
The memory returning?
No,
or the event?
The event.
1961.
1961, and the two of you were together?
Yes. We were goofing around on the front lawn of the house that our parents had moved us into from New York City, in a lovely village about 30 miles east of the city, goofing around on a late spring or an early summer morning, as kids do, on a completely quiet suburban street where nothing was happening, nothing was going on. And I caught the movement first, right peripheral vision, of 5 silvery white disc-shaped objects coming in at a high rate of speed, obviously metallic, and in a very precise V, as in Victor, formation, and stopping over the Parker's house, the house across the street. And we looked and looked and looked. And you've had plenty of experience hearing people describe their experiences. And I know some people have said to me over the decades, wait a minute, you're saying a sighting changed your life? Well, yes, it's nothing. It's a cupcake compared to something that Travis Walton or Deb Jordan Cabell or, several hundred people whose names you don't know that I have met and spent time with have had these experiences. But for me, it was shattering. It was another time. It was much simpler. I was such an unsophisticated kid, as was Helen. And the subject had no interest for me except in terms of B science fiction movies that I enjoyed very much at the Fantasy Theater on Saturdays sometimes, or on TV. But I went through a reaction, and Helen did too, and we talked about it, that I've chronicled with many, many, many people over the years, which I call the checklist reaction. And it's simply you're minding your own business, living your life, and you look up and you see a thing or things, and your rational mind goes through the checklist of everything that they are not. Planes, helicopters, kites, blimps, balloons, flotsam and jetsam, strange-shaped clouds, birds, reflections from the ground, strange-shaped clouds, and then you kind of hit the wall. And in that moment, straining to have them be something that I could accept as ours, but no tails, no wings, no propellers, and Jimmy close enough to make out regular detailing off color around the edge of each that was lighter, and it was metallic, not like shiny stainless steel, but subdued like brushed aluminum, whatever. But we could see what years later we could only agree would be the equivalent of windows on a commercial airplane. And at a certain point, I had it. You'd think this is the most incredible moment of your life, and it was, that nothing's going to take your eyes off these things.
Why do you think she remembered everything and you buried it?
Well, we had long talks about that. Plus, I went into therapy over this because I was having so much trouble adjusting to what now, we've been talking about for 2 hours or so, and, millions of people take as a matter of course. This was new to me. I remember sitting down with a professor of mine, studying with at New York University Night School, very knowledgeable on the subject. And Helen was still at the edges of real childhood, with possible imaginary friends, and as young and as untouched by the hard edges of the world as a 12-year-old kid could be.
She was 12. How old were you?
I was 14.
You were 14.
And my life was being run by raging hormones. The fact that I was the nerdiest kid in Nerdsville. I was the shortest kid in my class. I wore thick glasses. I wasn't into sports. I read books. I collected bugs and coins and stamps. I was a Boy Scout, and before that a Cub Scout. I was, when you go to the dictionary and you look up the word nerd, there I am. And all of a sudden, I just was obsessed with this idea that maybe someday I will have a girlfriend. And maybe someday, if I'm really lucky, I will have this thing, and I'm only half kidding, Jimmy, called sex. And that's the most important thing in my life, living for that moment. And I knew if I told one of my geeky friends in junior high school and a girl found out about this, every girl would find out about it. They'd all laugh at me, and I would die a virgin. I'm very pleased to report that was not the case ultimately, but I was so self-conscious about it, and I was so threatened by what I did not understand. For me, everything in the adult world was now open to question. For Helen, it was, this is amazing, I feel special. And when we talked about it again, more than 14 years later, that memory came back. I could go into why I think it came back at that moment. The important thing, I think, is that I was ready to deal with it, but it overwhelmed me. I remember just breaking down on the floor of my loft in East Chinatown. I've been going through drawings and thinking I was crazy for a while, because how could you forget something like that?
Yeah,
well, we know people can.
Now, how did you and Helen get separated?
Very simple.
With the abduction, yeah. Tell me
Very
about how.
simple. We're looking and looking and looking, and at a certain point, like I said, I had it. And I turned on my heels to run into the house, very specifically to tell our mother, who at that moment was in the kitchen, probably in the early stages of, finishing reading the paper and thinking about making lunch for us later. And as I took off, Helen told me, again, years later, I remember you disappearing from my peripheral vision. I knew instinctively you were running into the house to tell Mom. And what I remembered dovetailed with what she remembered in a way that really shattered me, which was, I remember within 2 or 3 seconds, I'm almost at the front door, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm running through molasses. Everything has slowed down. And I'm so fascinated with what I'm feeling, which is unlike anything I've ever felt before, I literally forget about them. That's how transposed I was by this new feeling. And all of a sudden, it was simply fascinating, no anxiety at all. In reality, as I can put it together now, I had lost all motor functioning, and I was now in a slow fall from the grass onto the walkway leading right to the front door, which was very close by. But I was completely charmed by the moment. And you have heard accounts like this where, my God, there are UFOs in the sky, and I'm just thinking, what a lovely day this is, and gosh, how nice things are. And my last three conscious thoughts, which I relived markedly in regressive hypnosis when I was ready for it, once with Bud Hopkins, the other with Detective Sergeant Pete Mazzola of the New York City Police Department, an early mentor, a great cop, and a very fine UFO investigator who had been undergone hypnotic regression training for NYPD for criminal investigation. But my last conscious thoughts before everything went blue for a split second and black were how lovely my mom's hydrangea bushes looked. She was a great gardener, and they were pale blue flowers. The next was I'm coming down toward the sidewalk, and in the scoring in the sidewalk, ants are building anthills. And I remember, communing with them for a moment. And then what a lovely day this is, and bang, I'm out.
What happened to Helen?
Well, Helen, again, knows I've just disappeared. And what she said was within 2 or 3 seconds, she sees a light, a blue light, shoot out of the bottom of one of these things. And she said to me, I was a kid, but I wasn't stupid. I know you can't see a beam of light during the day, but I turned around to see you in a blue light. And then you went down and I went up, and then described her very clear memory of rising off the ground with her hair blowing. It was quite long, and for the first and last time, seeing the roof of our house, and me getting smaller and looking up and seeing them getting bigger, and then remembering being walked through a hallway, a curved metal hallway, by a number of small beings that we would now call grays. Imagine you're me, Jimmy, and you're in your late 20s. You've got your career thing going. Your sister is one of your dearest friends. You know she wouldn't lie to you. And you have this memory return, and that's shattering enough. And she confirms the memory without your feeding her anything. I was very careful to set the scene rather than tell her what I remembered and have her say yes or no. And then that feeling of split elation, anxiety, it was real. It was real. And figuring that was it. And what an amazing afternoon this has been. And then she said, but there's more. And then she went on to describe what I'm describing to you. Obviously, one of my first questions was, how come we never talked about this all these years? And her answer was, do you remember me coming up to you that afternoon and saying, do you want to talk about this? I said, yeah. And she said, do you remember what you said? And I said, yes. No, I didn't want to talk about it.
How long was she on the craft? We just have 2 minutes left, Peter. How long was she on the craft?
I could have been half an hour. I don't know how long I was out. I do know that when I finally got into the kitchen, my mom was making us lunch. And I said to my mother, quote unquote, Mom, Helen and I just saw some things in the sky that looked like flying saucers from the movie, end quote. I remembered from both hypnotic regressions, clear as a bell. My mother turned and looked at me. Didn't feel she had to say anything, which was actually a gift. No anxiety. Oh, honey, you just thought it. Blah, blah, blah. She just looked at me. And I remember thinking, this is the way adults look at each other. But that connection with Helen and I that afternoon, and her kind of nursing a dream of being a performer. Her boyfriend at the time was a drummer for a band that went on to become the Blue Oyster Cult not long after. He took some of her poetry, put it to music. The album went gold, then it went platinum. And she started to perform right at that moment when punk was moving into the music scene, and opened over the next months for Debbie Harry and Blondie, the Talking Heads, Richard Hell and the Voidoids, Iggy, the Ramones a number of times, the Dead Boys, and on. And who knew? I went to all the shows, of course, and pushing the fire limit, CBGB's was 175 people. But all of a sudden, I was not just in the world of UFO studies, I was caught up in Helen's world of punk. And about that time, we both got gold and platinum albums. She for lyric writing for the Cult, me for art direction work. And our musical lives took off at the same time as our UFO lives did as well.
The event, we're out of time, but you said you were affected by it one way, and are you suggesting that it was a positive experience for her?
It would have been possibly if at that moment she was on the table and she heard in her head, "We've seen you before, we'll see you again," or "You've seen us before, you'll see us again." I'm not clear on that one. "You're special. We love you, we will not hurt you." And she remembered very clearly hearing "we will not hurt you" in her head while she was experiencing genuine pain for whatever they were doing down there. So she was no fan of theirs. And she was very public about it. We went on, God almighty, we did the Morton Downey Jr. show together. We did the Geraldo show together. She was very outspoken in music business interviews about it. It was a source of some of her lyrics, album designs. And she felt very proud to be an out abductee early on. Was a member of Bud Hopkins' very first abductee support group. We could continue on about her, but that's the gist.
Incredible story. And I always say this about her. She was so beautiful and so talented. She was just an absolutely incredibly inspiring person. And there you go. And Peter, Happy New Year. Thank you for taking the time tonight. Another great conversation. And I look forward to our next conversation as we resolve some of these things in 2022. Thank you so much,
I will too,
Peter.
Jimmy. And very best wishes to you and your family in this new year.
Have a great, safe, fun New Year's Eve. It's coming up in a couple of days. Thank you so much, Peter. Have a great night. Peter Robbins. And again, I'm going to post this video of Helen at the Ritz so everybody can see and experience Helen Wheels. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Another great show. I want to thank Peter Robbins for coming in tonight. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Viteau, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2021 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, Richard Bleepin Dolan will be our last guest for 2021. Until tomorrow night, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.